Welcome to This Is Lit, a podcast where we drink and talk about our favorite books. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Casey.
And we're your hosts, so everybody raise a glass and let's get started.
Are we going to say anything that we lost it or?
Yeah, I mean, we
did
did.
post about
I
that.
did post that it's like, we have corrected files, so we can probably say something like take 2 or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, Liz, what are we drinking today?
Well, today we are drinking a Riesling from Somerset Ridge Vineyard and Winery, and it is made with the Riesling grape. Surprise, surprise. It is a semi-sweet white wine, and it was bottled 2 weeks ago. I was
and it
there.
has a sunflower on the label.
Yes, I was there when it was bottled.
This whole working at a winery thing is really working for me, too.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. I like that.
This is the sweetest I will probably ever go on a wine.
See, this is like the least sweet wine I would ever drink.
Do you get kind of that citrus with it? Because
Yeah.
I think I get oranges with it.
Yeah, like oranges
There's-
or like mandarin.
Yeah, there's definitely some orange mandarin with it.
I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm pro this wine. So today we are discussing A Midsummer Night's Dream, which we discussed once already, and then my computer did a thing. Mercury's in retrograde, and technology sucks.
It might have been Puck.
That's a good intro there. So we lost the entire episode, and honestly, I was probably too drunk at the time to remember what we said anyway. So this
Same.
is for the best.
So we're going to do our best to make it a genuine conversation as always.
Yes, but just so you're aware, it is a re-record. So this play was written by William Shakespeare, just a guy out of England. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Kind of a big deal.
Middle of many, many conspiracy theories.
Yeah, that's true. Shakespeare was poor actor
Yes.
that basically started writing his own plays.
As we are now.
As we are now, poor actors who write our own plays. Literally. I don't know
Now,
if
if
we're
only we could gain the favor of the queen.
right?
Which
or the
queen?
Population. I don't believe in monarchies. I'm anti-monarchy.
Now, just because I say queen doesn't mean I mean royalty.
Oh, like a drag queen? Well, Widow Von Du likes me. She's my
I
favorite
will
drag queen in
take
Kansas
that.
City.
Widow Von Du, listen to our
Widow
podcast.
Von Du, listen to our podcast. So I was...
Oh, there's our game.
Oh, the listen to our podcast.
Yes.
So we were discussing earlier how to have kind of a silly podcast, and we haven't decided yet on a date for it, but we are going to be having an episode where instead of drinking wine, we are going to take shots, and the shots are going to be taken, obviously when we say listen to or ask anyone to listen to our podcast, but we're also going to each pick 2 or 3 phrases for each other that we think the other person says all the time.
Yes, so send in your suggestions for us.
Send in your suggestions via Twitter. We're at
Wine Literature.
Wine Literature on Twitter. And if you think you hear us say a certain phrase really often, send it in. We're going to pick 2 or 3 each. And if we end up saying those phrases, we have to take a shot of some kind of hard liquor. We haven't decided on yet either.
This is going to be so embarrassing.
It's going to be pretty bad. We'll
yes.
probably try and do a really simple book for that one.
Yes.
Just so we don't have to keep track
Maybe
of too much.
a fairy tale that we know really well.
Yeah, or something along those lines. Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Something we know backwards
We
and forwards.
cannot do shots and talk about Harry Potter because there's too many layers of that.
Yes. So, anyway, that's just a brief announcement. We will give you more details on when that is happening once we have determined it.
Yes.
In the meantime, we're going to go back to A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yes.
Now, Shakespeare has written hundreds and hundreds of things. Plays, sonnets, all sorts of stuff. Poetry, and invented a pretty significant part of, like,
Of
modern
the English language, yes.
I found a list of things that he said that, like, were not said before that. Some of the fun ones on here are end all be all.
Mm-hmm. All's well that ends well.
All's well that ends well. All that glitters is not gold. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. Brevity is the soul of wit. Cold comfort, the phrase cold comfort. Dead is a doornail.
Oh, I know that one. I haven't heard cold comfort.
King Henry. Every dog has his day.
Mm-hmm.
The devil incarnate. Faint-hearted. Fancy-free. Forever in a day. Full circle. The game is afoot, which later is used.
Hashtag episode 3.
Jealousy as a green-eyed monster was a Shakespearean invention. Heart of gold was a Shakespearean invention. In a pickle, like pretty much, if you can think of it, if it's like a short phrase that you use on the regular, like probably Shakespeare invented it. Knock knock jokes were an invention of Shakespeare's.
Oh no!
Yeah, from the Scottish play, whatever, with the porter and at the front door.
The first Scottish tragedy.
Yes. So, at any rate, Shakespeare, needless to say, Shakespeare has been a huge impact on modern culture.
Yes, and A Midsummer Night's Dream is one of his most famous comedies. He has comedies and tragedies.
And historical plays.
And historical.
Boring.
Which are usually tragedies because history is
a tragedy.
Messed up.
Because his history is, generally speaking, a tragedy.
Although, watching Tom Hiddleston perform King Henry in all leather.
See, King Henry is, like, interesting to me because one of my favorite movies of all time is A Lion in Winter.
Really?
Yes, I love A Lion in Winter. Katharine Hepburn won an Oscar for Best Actress in it. Absolutely phenomenal movie. That and Beckett, which was the prequel to it. Those are two of my favorite, like, old movies, like classic movies, quote unquote. And the plays that they were based off of, obviously. But those are other variations on what Shakespeare wrote with the Henry series. Well, if we're going into variations, we have 10 Things I Hate About You, which is Taming of the Shrew. Modern variations.
We have The Lion King, which is Hamlet with a happy ending.
That's true. What about She's the Man?
She's the Man is Viola. Twelfth Night, yes.
So there's like a lot of them. There's one for Midsummer Night's Dream that Kirsten Dunst was in, but it's not as good. I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yeah, but Midsummer Night's Dream is probably my favorite Shakespeare comedy.
Yeah. Because
of the Fairies.
Oh, yeah. The Fairies are fun. Midsummer Night's Dream is not my favorite Shakespeare comedy. That would be Much Ado About Nothing. Or As You Like It. One of those two. I always go back and forth. But it's up there, and it's actually the Shakespeare I have performed the most. As an actor, I have been in my fair share of Shakespeare. I did a gender swap version of Julius Caesar.
Yes. I bet that was interesting.
It was. I did a version of the Scottish play that was like kind of an abridged version.
Yes, since we are actresses, we will not name the Scottish play. And just because we're a little superstitious, and also Casey is a redhead, so she attracts stuff anyway.
That's true. So I did an abridged version of that. I did this thing called All the World's a Stage when I was in middle school. It was my first play in middle school, and it was like, basically the premise of it there was a modern student, and she sat on stage, and she was basically doing a presentation for a class about Shakespeare. And as she would do it, there would be scenes that happened. So there was a scene from the Scottish play, there was a scene from As You Like It, there was a scene from The Tempest. So that was my first experience. But then, A Midsummer Night's Dream, I have been in 4 times. I've played Puck twice, and I've played Hermia twice. At this point, I'm too tall to probably play Hermia.
I've played Hermia 3 times. And I've also, I count one of those as I use her monologue against Helena later in the play as my audition monologue. So, I painted Maple. That's one of my favorite lines. And I've also written a version of A Midsummer Night's Dream once for the Radio Free Puppets show. Right.
Justin, you better be listening to our podcast.
Oh, you better be listening to this podcast, Justin. I write your damn show.
But I do love A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I realized the other day when I was, like, editing these podcasts that there's something that I've been meaning to ask in every episode that I haven't done. And that's, who's your favorite character?
Oh, in the play?
Yeah, so in any of our stories that we read, I think we should just ask this. But in A Midsummer Night's Dream, who is your favorite character?
That's a hard one for me.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the fairies. Right now, it's kind of a tie between Puck and Titania. Because who wouldn't want to be queen of the fairies?
Well, if being queen of the fairies meant you had to have a love affair with an ass, I wouldn't.
What person has not had a love affair with an ass?
Me?
You've never dated an asshole?
No. All of the people I've dated in any capacity have been very nice people. All of us have had mutual and
then you are a dating unicorn.
I've heard that before. No, but
I'm willing to bet 95% of our listeners have been like, oh yeah, I've dated an asshole before.
Well, Bottom is both an asshole and a literal ass at this point.
Yes.
But we should rewind here to
Yes.
the beginning of the play, what gets it all started, because the play doesn't start with the fairies, the play starts with the people.
Yes, it is.
And I would say two of my favorite characters would be Hermia and Puck. Hermia I really like because she's just very feisty.
She is, especially for a woman of Elizabethan England.
Well, Greece. This is in Greece.
Yeah, this is in Greece, but it was written in Elizabethan England, and Shakespeare is notorious for using different times and settings to discuss what was actually going on politically during the day and translate it for the common folk.
Right. So the play opens on Hermia's fight with her father.
Yes, and someone pointed this out to me when I was in high school, and I thought it was genius. All of Shakespeare's comedies have strong-willed women,
That's
and
true.
all of his tragedies
You've
do
got
not.
in Twelfth Night. You've got Viola.
Yes.
In As You Like It, you've got Beatrice, who
Yes.
is my favorite. You've got Hermia and Helena in Midsummer Night's
Yes,
Dream.
who are both very strong-willed women.
Mm-hmm.
And Titania, who is a strong-willed
Titania.
queen.
But
I'm sorry, I'm American. Titania.
So, Hermia's having a fight with her father because he wants her to marry Demetrius.
Yes.
And she does not want to marry Demetrius because she is in love with Lysander.
Yes, and Demetrius had previously promised himself to Helena,
But then
and
fell in love
then
with Hermia.
fell in love with Hermia, which, I don't know, if I was Helena, I would not want Demetrius back, but that's just me.
Right.
But, and
So-
it is said that Lysander, Hermia's love, is the true romantic hero of this play, or he at least sees himself as such.
So, she wants to marry Lysander, but her father takes her before
Theseus?
Theseus, who is the leader.
Yeah, and who
of
is due
Athens.
to marry
Hippolyta.
Hippolyta. Thank
Queen
you.
of the Amazons.
Queen of the Amazons, yes.
Diana's mother in comic
Yes.
book history.
Which, yes, he is due to marry Hippolyta by the new moon.
Right. And so he really doesn't want to deal with these people's problems
No.
right now. And so he's kind of like, listen, I'm really in love with this girl, and we're going to get married, and I really don't have time for your problems.
Yes.
Hermia, you need to marry Demetrius like your dad said, or you can live in exile, or we can kill you.
Or you can go to a nunnery. Get thee to a nunnery.
Basically, he's like, you could be abstinent for life, you can die, or you can be exiled. Those are your choices. And Hermia's like, not having it.
No. And so she and Lysander come up with a plan to elope.
And the only person they tell about it is Helena.
Helena.
Because Helena's Hermia's best friend, and she thinks she's legit and won't, rat
And
her out.
they find Helena distraught because of her love for Demetrius. And
Which means that Helena, in some kind of foolish attempt to win Demetrius back, tells him
Yes.
about Lysander and Hermia's plans.
And the only reason Lysander and Hermia tell Helena of their plans is to comfort her and say, well, you don't need to worry about me stealing his heart away. I'm going to be gone soon and married to Lysander, so I will be out of your way.
Really, this is all kind of Helena's fault. She should have just been like, I don't know where they went. And things probably would have blown over.
Yes.
But she didn't, and so Demetrius follows them into the woods, and she follows Demetrius into the woods.
Yes. And then...
It's like a sitcom, but in the woods.
Which situations? We have 3 different groups in this play. We have the 4 lovers, which Shakespeare does introduce the love interest of Helena, and so it kind of is like, oh, well, there can be balance in this group.
Mm-hmm.
And then he introduces Nick Bottom and the other players.
The players. So Peter Quince, Snout, Starveling,
Yes.
Flute, and Bottom.
Yes.
And they are actors who are traveling to Athens to perform
Yes.
a play for Hippolyta and
But
Theseus'
they
wedding.
are not actors, they are tradesmen
who are acting.
who are acting.
So they're going to put on the play of Pyramus and Thisbe
Which is basically Romeo and Juliet.
for the wedding of Hippolyta and
Yes.
Theseus.
Which, by the way, interesting choice for a wedding.
It is a weird choice. So there's this whole comedic side story where they're arguing about who gets to play Pyramus and Thisbe and who has to play the wall that separates them.
Yes, or the moon, or the light, or
Because
the
they're
lion.
clearly not actors and they have no idea what they're doing.
And Nick Bottom proclaims he can play every part perfectly to a T.
He's an asshole.
Yeah.
He's if you are an actor like Liz and I are, he is every arrogant dillweed lead actor who thinks he's better than everybody else there that you've ever met.
Which I have a sneaking suspicion Shakespeare had a bit of experience with that.
It was probably a specific call out.
Probably. Oh, I
I'm
would have
willing to bet.
loved to have been there and seen that.
I'm willing to bet it was a very specific call out. At any rate, everyone else is pretty well done with Bottom's bullshit too.
Yes, and so they decide to go out into the forest in the middle of the night to rehearse, so that way no one sees their ideas and steals their stuff for their play.
The third party is the Fairies.
Yes, the Fairies.
Titania and her husband Oberon.
Queen Titania, King Oberon, and his servant Robin Goodfellow, a.k.a. Puck.
So Titania and Oberon are having a lover's spat.
Yes, there is a young boy that Oberon wants for his court, and the queen will not give him up because she's like, I found him first.
So first off, there's like ostensibly a kidnapped child in the mix here somewhere.
Yes, and he's Indian for some reason.
So Titania kidnapped a child, as fairies tend to do. Probably replaced him with a changeling, as fairies tend to do.
Mm-hmm.
And has kept him as her handmaiden. Not the word I'm looking for here, but kept him as her servant.
Yes.
But Oberon wants the child as his servant, and Titania says, "No, fuck you." And Oberon says, "Well, I'm your king, so you should give me whatever I want." And Titania's
she's like, I am your queen. I don't have to do shit.
basically. And so Oberon's mad, and they're not talking to each other.
No, they're having a lover's spat.
This is the equivalent of sleeping in separate bedrooms because of a stupid argument.
Yes. And so Oberon decides to get revenge by embarrassing his wife.
He enlists the assistance of Puck to play a prank on her. There is a flower that
where if you put the nectar on the eyelids, it will cause the
people to fall in love with the first person they see upon waking.
Yes.
So he first turns Bottom
into an ass. And when we say ass, we mean a donkey. Head of a donkey.
On his body.
So we're technically not swearing, Mom.
We swear all the time.
I try not to because I know my mom will be listening to this
You
podcast.
said fucking shit like 5 seconds ago.
It happens.
So
okay,
Bottom gets his head turned into a donkey's head.
Liz has had a stressful week. I get 1.
That was 2.
Okay, I get 2.
I'm going to keep count, just be an asshole. I'm exemplifying what Bottom is for the audience.
I love you.
So, Bottom gets his head turned into that of a donkey's.
Yes.
And then Titania, while she is sleeping in her like lovely little flower bed out in the woods, which seems like it would be very itchy.
With all of her lovely nymphs and as a female, I'm like, how do you know there's not stuff going on?
There's like chiggers out there. Or
yeah,
something.
there's chiggers, and you could get chiggers in an unpleasant place.
Yeah, as far as you're concerned, the fairies are just naked and bouncing through the forest. I'm not about that life. No, not me.
Me neither.
Anyway, she's asleep, so Puck sneaks in, puts the juice of the nectar of the flowers on her eyelids. The first thing she sees when she wakes up, Nick Bottom with the head of a donkey.
And as this is going on,
the teenagers are running through the woods.
Hermia and Lysander are trying to elope. Demetrius and Helena are chasing after them, and
Puck sees them as well.
Puck sees them and tells Oberon, and after
Oberon decides for some reason that he wants to help these humans.
Yes, and so he says to Puck, put this nectar on the eyes of the sleeping man.
And that way he'll fall back in love with the girl that's following him.
Yes.
Helena.
So he means to put the nectar on Demetrius's eyes, so Demetrius will fall in love with Helena.
Puck misunderstands and puts the nectar on Lysander's eyes, and Lysander wakes up, sees Helena, falls in love with her, and leaves the sleeping Hermia alone in the woods.
Yes, after he has already tried to be a horn dog with her.
Yeah. Yeah, so Hermia wakes up alone in the woods. Helena is
half naked.
Helena's being chased around by Lysander. Puck quickly realizes his mistake, puts the nectar on Demetrius' eyes, and suddenly Helena is being chased around by 2 boys when a minute ago nobody wanted her.
And Hermia believes that this is a cruel prank that they are all playing on her, and kind of gets into a catfight with Helena.
Yeah. So there's a lot of misunderstandings going on here. This is a very like
this is almost comedy of errors, but it is not.
Yeah. So so this is all happening. Oberon is spending his time alternating between Puck, you need to fix this, and laughing at his wife while she is in love with a donkey in the woods. The other players
Which,
are
by the
off
way,
somewhere.
fantastic marriage.
God. Yeah, no. Who wants to be married to that?
My husband pulled that crud. No.
So, they say that Shakespeare's plays in one of two ways.
Yes. In a marriage
Or a death.
or a death.
Depending on whether it's tragedy or comedy.
Comedies
This is
end
a
in
comedy,
marriage.
which means it's going to end in a marriage. We just, at this point.
Don't know whose.
So, Puck manages to fix the situation with
And he
children,
removes the nectar from Lysander's eyes
and Lysander falls back in love with Hermia.
with Hermia. Yes.
Because he was legitimately in love with her before.
He was.
This is the part of the story I find troubling. And I mentioned this
yeah,
in our
this
original
is
recording.
kind of worrying for us.
I mentioned this in the original recording, but I'm going to bring it up again because I'm like that. Is Demetrius...
It's a valid point.
Demetrius was in love with Hermia when he went into the woods until a spell was cast on him to make him fall in love with Hermia. Or Helena.
Helena.
Now, one can argue he was in love with Helena before he met Hermia.
Yeah.
And this is just reverting him to that. But to me, it's like a spell has been cast on Demetrius to make him be in love with someone he's not actually in love with. So that's problematic, like, because Demetrius is put in a situation where he's not...
And this kind of, in a roundabout way, comes down to what is your definition of love. Is your definition of love a feeling, or is it a choice you make every day to put this person's well-being before yours?
I'm just saying, I don't know how long Fairy Nectar lasts, and
Me neither.
Demetrius and Helena are going to wake up 20 years from now hating each other? Like, also, like, what about Helena? Like, she thinks her husband loves her. What if it wears off, and all of a sudden he's like, where's Hermia? I was going to marry her. It's like...
Oh, she's already married.
Yeah, it's an awkward thing. It's weird, but in, like, that Shakespearean time, like, this was an ideal solution to the problem.
It's a gray line for consent, and that's what we don't like about it.
But, like, Shakespeare, there wasn't really a conversation about that going
No.
on at that time. So,
Not
like, I mean,
medieval
obviously,
England.
obviously you can tell there wasn't a conversation going on about that at that time. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been literally a guy saying to Hermia, you can either marry this guy we picked for you, or you can die. Like, obviously, consent, a woman's consent is not... But Demetrius isn't consenting.
But a male's consent is important, too.
So it's weird, like, looking at it from a modern perspective.
It is a weird situation. It is kind of, you get kind of that happy ending because the lovers are now in balance and everybody is married and happy. And
It's very like,
Oberon takes the spell off.
and Titania
Titania.
laughs at it. They laugh
She
at it
laughs
together.
at it.
Fairies are fucked up, man. They both are like, ha ha ha, what a funny prank you played on me. And
That
he's like,
explains so much of your personality.
mine?
Yeah.
What?
Well, you know, redheads have fairy blood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it explains your personality.
So you're saying I'm fucked up is what you're saying.
I'm just saying you find things funny that I don't understand.
Well, I have a bad sense of humor. I spend too much time on the internet and I laugh at dumb memes and also really, really
Hey,
dark
there is
shit.
nothing wrong with memes.
I love memes.
Memes are awesome.
So,
Jesus.
wow. So anyway, once Puck sorts out his spells,
Yes.
there is a triple wedding. The wedding of Hermia to Lysander, Helena to Demetrius, and
Yes.
Hippolyta to Theseus.
Which it is saying
Sidebar.
something that the queen of the Amazons is getting married.
Sidebar, why the fuck are all the women in this show H names?
I know.
I know, like, one woman in real life that has an H name. I know a Helen.
One.
I know one person named Helen.
Oh,
Personally.
no, I know a Heather.
A Heather? I know a Heather.
Two.
What is
We're
it?
at two.
Helen, Heather. I can't think of any other common H names for women.
Hera?
Harriet. It's an older lady's name, but it checks out. Hera's a goddess.
I know, but it can
I
still
don't
be
know
used as a
anyone
name.
named Hera. Hiram.
Hiram McDaniels.
That was the last episode.
Yeah.
He wasn't in that, though.
No, he was not. Well, remember, he's on the run now.
Listen, I like dragons.
I know, there's nothing wrong with dragons.
this book could be improved. That's another question I'm going to ask from now on. Could the book be improved by the addition of a dragon?
Yes, everything can be improved by the addition of a dragon.
This book, this play,
it would work, though.
Could be improved by the addition of a dragon that eats Hermia's father for being an asshole. And Nick Bottom.
Yes, as actresses, we all hate Nick Bottom.
Also, I should say something.
Yes.
I'm currently in a production of Shrek the Musical.
Yes.
And
I'm well aware.
Every time we talk about Nick Bottom and his donkey's head, I keep picturing Nick Bottom bouncing around with Eddie Murphy's voice.
Oh my gosh.
Being like, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe. And I can't get it out of my head.
Oh my gosh.
It's a weird thing.
And you just came off a very wonderful, triumphant run of The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I did, which we need to read at some point. Although the book is, it's interesting.
Hella depressing.
It's interesting because the book is hella depressing. The Disney movie is hella depressing up till the end, which it swaps for a happy ending. And the musical takes all of the best elements of both the book and the movie. I'd say of the stories, just of like the plot.
The musical is fantastic.
The musical has the best plot. Because it's sad and it like does end with consequences and death that make it more potent. But it's not like the book, like even the people who are like kind to Quasimodo don't care about him. Yeah. Like Esmeralda's kind to him in the book, but she's afraid of him.
To quote the witch from Into the Woods, "You're just nice, you're not good."
Yeah. Whereas Esmeralda in the play and the Disney movie.
Perhaps we should save this for when we do the book.
That's true. I'm getting sidetracked again.
So, if we're going back to performances, Midsummer Night's Dream, there is a wonderful movie adaptation because Shakespeare was meant to be heard and seen, not read.
Reading Shakespeare is hard. Unless you've got like a direct translation, like No Fear Shakespeare does a really nice thing where one column will have the exact literature and the other column will have a modern interpretation of it, which makes it easier to understand.
When I was in Mrs. Cummins, I'm very sorry, but I'm about to burst your bubble. When my brother was in your English class in his freshman year of high school and you guys read Romeo and Juliet, I was actually the one helping him with all those. Because my brother is an engineer and he does not understand Shakespeare. So I would read 3 pages, tell him what happened in those 3 pages, and then we would continue that for the reading assignment for the night, and then he would help me with my math homework.
I don't know that a teacher would find that, be critical of that. Like, I mean...
All of his journal entries were like, Romeo and Juliet are 13 and 14 years old. This is ridiculous.
I'm just saying, like, from the perspective of a teacher, like, you want a kid to learn something. So if they learn it best by having it told to them by someone else, then, like, fine.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you didn't, like, straight up write his essay for him.
No,
like,
but my brother is 4 years older than me. I was in 5th grade, and I could understand Shakespeare.
It's just kind of, well, it's like a combination of understanding and also, like, again, like, watching it is helps so much. Like, when I was a kid, I hated Hamlet. It's my favorite of the dramas at this point.
Yeah.
Or the tragedies.
Well, they need
but when
to
I
stop
was a kid, I
casting
hated
Hamlet as a 50-year-old.
Right. Like, the first time I ever saw Hamlet in a movie was Laurence Olivier.
Yeah.
And I saw the Mel Gibson one, and I was like, he's being such an asshole, whiny bitch. What is his problem? And then whenever I was a senior in high school, my teacher was like, so remember, Hamlet's about 17 to 19 years old. And it was just like the entire story had a different cast to it at that point. I was like, everything makes so much more sense to me now. This is, of course, going to be the attitude of a college kid whose dad just got murdered. Like, that's appropriate behavior.
Which is why casting the age is important.
Right, and, like, Shakespeare is a weird thing where people won't cast the age because it's considered prestigious to be in a Shakespearean production, and especially Hamlet. Hamlet is, like, the quintessential role that all, like, legitimate actors think that they need to play in order to have made it. And so you've got people like Mel Gibson and Laurence Olivier and, like, older actors who are past the age that is appropriate to play Hamlet being allowed to be cast in it because since it's prestigious, we waive our casting. And it's the same thing with this show. It's like when I was a kid, I thought that these were grown-ass adults running away into the woods, and then I realized, no, they're, like, probably 16, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Like, running off into the woods.
They're teenagers. They are teenagers.
And that changes your perspective on it hugely. Like, the fact that, like, Helena is, like, willing to take Demetrius back in the first place. The fact that she follows him into the woods.
It's a very
she's
love-struck.
17,
Yeah, it's a very love-struck 17-year-old girl.
Like, just because in Shakespeare's time people did things younger, like getting married and having children,
Yeah,
doesn't mean that their emotions didn't still develop psychologically like we have learned that they do.
exactly.
Like, regardless of whether the fact is of you got married at 16 in Shakespeare's time, you still had the brain of a 16-year-old.
Yeah, that is why I really appreciate it when high schools do productions of Shakespeare, because it's a little bit more true to casting, typically.
Like, not every Shakespeare is like that. Like,
No.
Much Ado About Nothing, they're adults. Like,
Yeah, or Othello.
Beatrice and Benedict are like in their probably mid-20s. Maybe their 30s even.
Didn't we talk about Benedict would be the only person we would date from the Shakespeare canon?
Only man I would date.
Only man you would date, okay.
And Benedict, I would only date Benedict once he got past his whole, I'm gonna be single forever, marriage is the refuge of the uninspired thing.
My girlfriend is France.
Listen.
We're going to cover Les Mis eventually.
Oh, God, that's gonna be a beast.
That's going to be a three-parter.
Oh.
That's going to be a three-parter,
Oh.
Casey.
Oh.
Casey just had an attack and will be back with us momentarily.
It's called The Brick for a reason, Liz. I could murder you with it. Have you seen it?
Yes, you
Stories
have
is
one
thick.
on your shelf.
It's annotated, too.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, we're getting off track again. My point is,
Teenagers.
casting Shakespeare with the appropriate age demographics makes it make a lot more sense.
Yes, and the version of Midsummer Night's Dream that I enjoy the most is there is a film version
Is it the one with Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yeah, with Michelle Pfeiffer as Titania and Kevin Kline as Nick Bottom. And I really enjoy that.
That's a good version.
It's a wonderful version. Stanley Tucci is Puck.
Yes. Yes, he is.
Wonderful little Stanley Tucci. We
Now
love
let
you.
me tell you about the worst version of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Do tell!
In the 70s, so the Royal Shakespeare Company is a very old British institution, by my understanding, that some productions, but they also did movie versions of a lot of these, but they still kind of film them in the same way you might film a stage production, even though they had different, like...
That's the version of Othello I watched in school.
So the version of Midsummer Night's Dream, so what had happened was, Shakespeare's birthday, April 20th,
Yes.
and I came home and I was like, Karina, we need to watch...
Wait, his birthday is 4/20?
Yeah, am I making that up? I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, Google. When is Shakespeare's birthday?
William Shakespeare was born in April 1564.
Yeah, April 20th of 1564.
One of the greatest playwright of all time. His birthday is on 4/20.
Anyway, my point is, I came home and was like, it's Shakespeare's birthday. Or maybe it's the 23rd. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
They didn't exactly keep decent records.
Whatever. My point is, I came home on the day that is widely considered... Karina! She's
We're
probably-
going to solve this mystery for
She's
you,
probably not
our
available.
listeners.
Is
When is
Shakespeare's
it?
birthday April 20th or 23rd?
What?
Shakespeare's birthday.
I don't know.
Well, because that was when we watched that weird-ass Midsummer Night's
I
Dream,
want to
remember?
say the 23rd.
Yeah, well, we were like, is it 420?
It
Shakespeare's
cannot-
birthday.
It
I
cannot
wish.
be 4/20.
I wish.
It
kids.
cannot be 4/20.
Remember when 420 fell on Easter Day and it was Weedster?
Yes. Yes, I
Nomine
do.
Patri, si Spiritus Sanctus, etc.
I adore Karina.
That's my
Oh
girlfriend.
my god, please leave that in.
So anyway, according to tradition, apparently we don't actually know, but according to tradition, it's April 23rd.
Yes.
Sorry for that 5-minute sidebar. My point is, on April 23rd, I came home and I was like, it's Shakespeare's birthday. I want to watch a Shakespearean. What I wanted to watch specifically was stupid Joss Whedon. I don't like him, but I do love Nathan Fillion, and I wanted to watch that version of Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
But it wasn't on Netflix anymore at that point. And I was like,
Boo.
Boo. Yeah. So then
Boo.
we were trying to find that or another Shakespeare variant. We like almost watched 10 Things I Hate About You, but we've seen it a billion times, so we were like, maybe a break from that. We finally end up on Amazon Prime, settling on the only free Shakespeare that was available on there, which was the 1974, I want to say, Royal Shakespeare Company's version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, the cast is not bad. Judi Dench plays Titania. Helen Mirren.
Is that the one that she gets?
Yeah, Helen Mirren plays Hermia, and Ian Holm, who you probably know from playing Bilbo,
Yes.
plays Puck. So there's some interesting casting there.
I know Ian Holm from other stuff, too.
However, Judi Dench's Titania is just a naked woman covered in silvery gray body paint. She's naked.
That's the one I thought that was.
She's naked. And there's like this weird acid trip in the
If
forest.
you ever wanted to see M naked.
If you ever wanted to see Judi Dench's titties, this is the movie to do it in. And apparently, like, she was fucking cold. Like, I was looking this up. Like, she was freezing cold. She had, like, leaves getting in every fucking crack of her body. Like, while she's laying in the woods. She had a miserable time. It was, like, wet outside. Like, they were actually filming outside.
No.
She's in, like, silver gray body paint and, like, pasties, you know? Like, but also there's some really weird choices in this. Like, specifically, there's one I cannot...
It was the 70s.
I cannot unsee this particular blocking choice. Hermia and Helena are sitting side by side on a hill whenever they're about to tell her about their plan to elope. And Lysander is going to sit down next to them to tell them. But instead of, like, sitting down, he's, like, lower on the hill than they are, so he just, like, leans forward until his knees hit the ground and, like, crawls towards them. And the camera is, like, from their perspective as he does this, so it's just Lysander, like, crawling uphill toward... It's the weirdest blocking decision I've ever seen in anything.
Lysander
He also has a bowl cut.
Oh,
It's-
Lord.
It was a really... I think we watched maybe 15 minutes of it, like, normal, and then we just started, like, clicking forward, like, clicking, like, we would just click at a random spot in it, and then we'd be like, hang on, I want to see Peas Blossom do her monologue about, like, the fairies in the forest.
Oh,
And it was like an
gosh.
acid trip. Oh, man. Like, the guy who played Oberon looked like the devil. Like, it was amazing. It was so bad. We were Snapchatting, like, screenshots of
I
it to
got
people.
some of those Snapchats.
Yeah, remember?
Oh, yes, I do. I remember going, what the heck is going on at their house?
The moral of this story...
Make
is
sure it's
that-
a good
The
adaptation.
moral of this story is that Shakespeare is considered to be, like, something to like, if you're a playwright, or if you're not a playwright necessarily, if you're a director, or if you're an actor, like, you've got to do something with Shakespeare to be quote-unquote legit. And so there's these directors who are doing Shakespeare that have no idea what they're doing, or people try to do an interesting spin on it where they're like,
Yeah.
well, this is a Midsummer Night's Dream, but it's in space instead of in the woods. Like, you know,
That actually would be interesting.
my point is that Shakespeare can be adapted very well or very badly. And it's kind of...
But the thing is, it has endured.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite new musicals that I saw last summer
Yeah.
out at Starlight. Hey, Starlight people, listen to our podcast.
Yes, with Something Rotten.
Was Something Rotten, which is basically a musical about a man who is in competition with Shakespeare
Yes.
to write a better play, and he goes to, it's not historically accurate, obviously, because he goes to Nostradamus to get advice on how to write a better play than Shakespeare, and Nostradamus tells him to write a musical, which hadn't been invented yet. And he tries to write a musical about the same thing that Shakespeare is writing a play about, and Shakespeare's writing Hamlet at the time, and so he eavesdrops to hear what Shakespeare's writing about. He mishears it as omelet, so he writes a musical about omelets. It's hilarious. You should all watch it or listen to the soundtrack. But my point is, Shakespeare endures. Like, you've got that. You've got your tons of, like, 90s teen movies that are variations of Shakespeare. You've got, you know, like, Disney, like Lion King, again, was, like,
Lion
a variation
King.
on Shakespeare.
Yes.
Like, the stories that Shakespeare told hold up very well. It's
Yeah,
been 200
and
years, you know.
that is because Shakespeare, along with Walt Disney, are both masters of the eminent domain.
Yes.
Like,
So
Pyramus
Shakespeare-
and Thisbe was a very famous Greek tragedy that
Right.
Shakespeare adapted to Romeo and Juliet.
Right, and Shakespeare adapted a lot of stuff. Even Hamlet is, like, got some basis in actual Danish history.
Yes.
And so does the Scottish play. A lot of his stuff was adapted, or it was something he came up with based off of stories he'd heard before. But nowadays, people are making stories off of his stories, which were made off of stories.
It's the telephone game.
There's no new content. Like every story has the same basis. Like there's like the 5 different like man versus nature, man versus self, man versus God, etc.
Man versus society.
Yeah. All stories have like the similar basis, but it's just like the way that Shakespeare chose to do it was something that continues to resonate with people even hundreds of years after the fact.
Yes. And Shakespeare was the master of writing to the lowest common denominator.
That was the big thing, is because at the time that Shakespeare...
Not everybody was literate.
Not everyone was literate, and also a lot
Only nobles were literate.
A lot of entertainment didn't take into account the interests of people who were not noble.
Exactly.
So, like,
Shakespeare did.
So a lot of people were writing plays that were very uppity and very, like, highbrow for the royalty, and no one cared what the poor people wanted to watch or listen to. But Shakespeare did, which is, I think, what made him so successful, is that he had the groundlings, or the people who got to just come in and stand in the standing room at the front of the stage.
Yeah.
And he wrote his plays with those people in mind, which meant that they were accessible to anybody, not just to people of a certain status.
Yes, and it didn't hurt that he had the favor of the ruling monarch at the time.
Yes. So there's a lot of different things that, like, went into Shakespeare being as successful as he was.
Yes.
But I think we can agree that a lot of what we have today we wouldn't have without his influence.
That is true. Even just simple turns of phrase, as we
went through before,
earlier.
yeah. But yeah, so I mean, Midsummer Night's Dream, like I said, it's not my favorite of the comedies, but I do really enjoy it. It feels very modern. It feels like a sitcom. A lot of the misunderstandings and things that go wrong feel very modern.
It feels very much like a modern sitcom.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's
everything gets wrapped up with a bow at the end of the play. Hi, Saffron. Everything gets wrapped up with a bow at the end of the play.
And
everyone
is happy.
Everyone's happy.
All's well that ends well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Midsummer Night's Dream, how many bottles would you give it out of 5?
I don't know. Why don't you go first? I'm still thinking on it.
I would give it 3.5.
3.5?
3.5. Again, we all know that I'm very harsh with my bottles. I'm not very generous about how many bottles I give something, but I really enjoy it, and I think it's important. It's not my favorite of Shakespeare. Like, if it was Much Ado About Nothing, I'd probably give it more. But yeah.
See, the hard time I have with the bottle rating on this one is reading it versus performing it.
Yeah.
I have a blast performing it. I love being Hermia. Reading it is not the same.
No.
So, I guess 3. 3 bottles.
3 is a story, and then...
3 is a story, and then maybe 3.5 performing.
Okay, so
because it's way more fun.
Somewhere around 3.25 bottles.
Yeah, bottles of wine. Which is more than enough to get you drunk.
Yeah, that's a good rating by our standards. So, we'll go ahead and close this one out. Like I said, I've played Puck twice. It's one of my favorite roles I've ever played, and I'd love to play it again. So I'm going to close it out by reading his closing monologue for this play, because it seems appropriate.
Please do.
And he says, "If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and these weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentiles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend, and I, as I'm an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, now to escape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long. Else the Puck a liar call. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands, and we shall be friends, and Robin shall restore amends." Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers!
Thank you for listening to our podcast. For more information, visit us at litliteraturepodcast.com or on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And remember, too much work and no vacation deserves at least a small libation. Cheers!